Welcome to series number 4 in the Anglican tradition. This is trailhead number 6, and we are still lingering on Erasmus. In this section I want to deal with Erasmus and rites and rituals. There's a tendency within some elements of the Protestant tradition to argue that liturgy, all the rites, the rituals, the Eucharist, baptism, all of these things are of secondary importance to the heart, and that some forms of baptism, particularly believers' baptism, infant baptism is problematic. How do you interpret the Eucharist? Is it memorial? Is it transubstantiation? Is it consubstantiation? Underneath a lot of these issues is what's the significance of religious rites and rituals, whether it's baptism, whether it's Eucharist, whether it's liturgy, whether it's a variety, whether we can talk about Lent or whether we talk about Easter or Advent, any of these sacred parts of the sacred seasons of the year. If I can use the analogy, living as I do in the British Columbia, of the Fraser River and the banks of the Fraser River. The human spirit, in its longing for meaning, can, if there is no tradition, fritter and go in a variety of directions. The banks of a river direct that water so that it gathers together in an intense way and can move mightily down the stream of time. Banks without water are interesting for archaeological sites. Water without banks, the water thins out and goes all over the place. Now, when we think of the rites and rituals, the danger is of thinking that somehow the rites and the rituals magically transform a person. Erasmus was very wary of this, and he was very clear that baptism, Eucharist, none of these things instantly, magically transform people. No more than Great Lent, no more than being attuned to the significance of Easter. People have to understand the banks of rites and ritual are meant to deepen, direct, and forge and form forward the direction of a mature Christian faith. And so without the banks, the water can go in all directions, but banks without water in many ways do not move water along anywhere where there is no water at all. And so what Erasmus tried to do, particularly those who came as critics of the Roman Catholic liturgical tradition, infant baptism, transubstantiation, Lent leading to Easter, Advent leading to Christmas, the pilgrimages that were taking place at his particular time. There was a tendency to think, well, if I engage in all these sacred events, therefore my faith will be more substantive and more meaningful. Erasmus's argument was, no, just because a person engages in these particular events is no guarantee that internally they're going to be transformed and externally their life is going to be one of much greater integrity. This did not mean that you get rid of the rites and rituals. They are the banks that give the water of the Spirit the direction it needs to be disciplined and focused and become more intense. And so Erasmus held together very, very closely both the commitment to the interior life, an interior openness to be transformed by the Spirit in the life of the Church, but also a commitment to the rites and rituals as means of transformation. They should never become ends in themselves. They're the very means, if we are open to them, for our understanding and transformation. And so when we think of Erasmus rites and rituals, all of these are means if we understand them properly, or like banks of a river that can focus, discipline, and mature the faith journey, but none of them magically transform us. And so it is in this living again in this tension between the rites as means but not ends, and earlier, as I mentioned, how you hold together both reform and unity, that we see Erasmus living with very difficult tensions, but they're the very tensions we have to live with in terms of substantive reformation in the life of the self, the community, and public witness.